So, welcome to the show. We just want to thank you all for joining, and we appreciate the time that you took to join this broadcast. And this is Jemima Chucks. My name is Jemima Chucks from the Jemima Show, and I want to welcome you all from all over the world, wherever you are watching. I want to welcome you. Welcome to the show. We appreciate you for joining, and we're super excited that you're here because it is time for change. It is time to make a difference. And the difference, the change starts with you. There's no other way to make a change without you. And we believe in you. We believe you can do this. We believe with your support, we can achieve this change. And on this show today, we have special guests of honors, a lot of them on here. We have people that are passionate and people that are very passionate for this country and not just Delaware. Although we are here in Delaware starting the show today, but I'd also like you to know that it's not just about Delaware, but it is all over the United States. All over the United States, we are very passionate, and unfortunately, we're going through this whole unrest, and the whole purpose of this show is to calm the whole situation down as much as we can. Today, our topic today is revolution without violence. We solely believe that we can achieve revolution without violence. We believe we can achieve revolution without violence. And so at this time, we are encouraging you to go ahead and share this and subscribe. Go ahead and invite your family to join this. On here on this show, we have the Lieutenant Governor of Delaware, Lieutenant Governor Bethany Holong, and there she's waving right there. And we have also Senator Hanson and Senator Stephanie Hanson, also from Delaware. And we also have someone from the police department representing the NWSCP as well as the police department. And we have here Master Sergeant Scott. Can you say hi? Awesome. We have Commissioner. We have Delaware, someone from the Delaware African Caribbean Affairs Commission. We have in the person of Commissioner Lauren Badley. And on here, we're also expected to join us. We're expecting one and only activist of, his name is Julius Garvey, the son of Marcus Garvey. And so we want to welcome you to today's show. We are going to go ahead and get started with the matter, on ground. It's just pretty a lot going on, and we want to, to get the whole of the story. Today, we are looking at the situation on ground. A young man was murdered. He died, unfortunately. He was not an intentional act, from everything we're seeing, but unfortunately, as a result of a bad cop or something that happened, he was murdered. We heard him chanting, we heard him screaming and begging for his life, literally saying, "I can't breathe, I can't breathe." And he said that 16 times. Yes, he said that 16 times. And he said, "I can't breathe," and all these things. These are the reasons why the masses, the people are upset. The Black community, the white community. This issue, it's not just about a certain race. Although some people are making it about race, but it's about humanity. And that's what we want to show. It's about humanity. So he died as a result of this cop not letting go of his neck when he was screaming and begging for his life. So today we want to look into this case. A lot of Black people took to the streets as a result of this to protest and say not again. Of course, in the recent times, we've witnessed the death of so many Black men killed in the hands of cops. And for some reason, it just keeps happening over and over again. And the Black community are so upset, and they're not having it anymore. And they're saying Black Lives Matter. They said, I remember watching them on the streets. They were here close to my house in Dover, and they were chanting, "No justice, no peace. No justice, no peace." I'm sure you must have heard that. So I'm going to leave you to the rest of the story, which you already know. But today we're here. We're focused on the issue at hand. Now, this issue at hand has disturbed the entire world. I heard in Africa they're protesting as well, not just in Europe and America. So let's talk about it. Let's all talk about it. this is a serious issue. We're going to start with the police officer. We're going to start with you, Master Sergeant Scott. Are you aware of what's going on? And I want you to tell us from your perspective, what is going on as a police officer? What do you understand? And tell us, you know, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. You just take your time and respond. Now, there's looting and vandalism. What is the impact of this loot? Why are they looting stores? What is going on? And what is the impact on our economy, on the businesses? How are the businesses responding to this impact? Go ahead.
Well, Jemima, you coming at me with a lot of questions. Okay. Let me just first give the audience a little bit of my background. I've been in law enforcement for 30 years. I've been African-American male for 51 years. I'm a veteran of the United States Army. So, and I'm also the president of the local NAACP in this area. So I have those perspectives for which to answer your question. As far as what's going on, we just actually had a demonstration / protest in the town of Middletown, Delaware yesterday in our town. And our approach with handling that protest was to basically get involved, be part of the organization of the event, you know, to work with local leaders, work with the youth. And the event came off very well. You know, you're always going to have some outliers that are going to be violent, that want to destroy things, but that's a whole nother issue. That's just, in my opinion, from my experience, that's just an excuse to do those things because that doesn't bring about change. Change, like you said at the outset of the show, it's surrounded by sitting down at the table and having meaningful dialogue. Meaningful dialogue entails listening, okay? People have to be able to listen. Those that are not African-American, that are not experiencing these things, have to be able to listen, to try to understand from African-Americans' perspective. The police department, this is the best job in the world, okay? I love this job. However, it's far from perfect. And the thing is, when we don't hold those officers accountable, that's when we build a culture that what you saw on display in Minnesota. And that happens. It starts at the top with the leadership. You know, I can tell you right now that my chief, he doesn't stand for that type of thing, you know, and it has to be, you know, put through the chain of command. Everybody has to be able to stand up when they see something wrong and say something, you know. Don't be a coward, say something. So that's kind of, you know, I hope that answers your question. I mean, as far as the looting and rioting, as far as why people do that, those are people that's just looking for something to try to take advantage of a situation.
Okay. Thank you so much for that response. That's really, it's so nice to hear that. And thank you for giving us the perspective of the police. From your response, we can actually tell that the police is not in support of police brutality, correct? That's what you're saying, that police brutality is unacceptable. And you, as representing the police force, you agree to the fact that police brutality is unacceptable. So here we have on here, Lieutenant Governor Bethany Holong. We want to appreciate you for joining us. Can you tell us what have you been doing so far to calm the situation down?
It's a pleasure to be with you. I want to assure those who are watching, I am not driving at the moment. I am stationary, but those who are here today, Scott Saunders and Stephanie Hansen, and hopefully in a little bit, our great esteemed Dr. Garvey, I really look forward to hearing from them and listening. But I am out in the car today. It's always about being out in the community and listening and responding. And I think, I know that our governor, those who are in office now have to and are at the table. I hope everyone is, in a different manner and means. Senator Hansen will share with you the importance. I know her work and the work I've done working in communities who are diverse and having respectful times and ears. We are listening And I know not only are we going to have to address issues around law enforcement and policing and codes of conduct and civil, nobody needs to hear all of that right now. We need to acknowledge the institutional racism, the inequities, and the horrific murder
Oh, he's in.
that just occurred, the horrific murder, and that this is a chance, a watershed moment in our country to step up and to make a difference and to change this culture. It starts with us in our homes. It starts in our community. And I didn't give my whole background. I'll spare that for now. But those who are listening in and know me, Miss Lorraine, Stephanie, and Scott, my public health background, my nursing background, know I have that motto. I always say it. We all bleed red. We are all needing of equal and equitable. Equal is not equity. We need equitable equity in housing, healthcare, and services. So that's what I'm proud to stand for. And I know other government officials are relying on our community, the leaders and our stakeholders and our organizations to come together to take this opportunity. It is a watershed moment, and not just to talk, but to walk the walk. And that's the final thing I'll say for now. Our Congresswoman Lisa Blunt Rochester, who's the first African American female in our state to go to Washington, has said it best. Sticks in a bundle we cannot break, and we have to stand together and speak up for the injustices. So thank you for having me. And again, I just want to reiterate how important it is, and I stand ready, and I know other officials do, to make those changes occur. I will be tonight in Wilmington at the peace rally. I will be in Middletown, I know, with Stephanie and other leaders on Sunday. But it's not enough to be at a rally and to walk the streets and to talk. You've got to walk that walk, and it is time for all of us, community members and electeds, to walk that walk. So thank you for having me here. And as Scott emphasized, violence to violence, we don't want. We want individuals to get those resources they need. And so I'm pleased to be here. I'm ready to listen.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Lieutenant Governor. We appreciate you for sharing that with us. We just want to welcome our wonderful activist right here, Julius Garvey. We welcome you and we honor your presence. Thank you for joining us, sir. And we're going to move on to racism. Lieutenant Governor, when you were speaking, you also mentioned the issue of racism and the impact. And right now, I think racism is a key influencer of this whole protest. It has happened over and over again. And this question will be for you, Commissioner Lauren Badley. Racism has impacted and it has fueled this whole protest. What do you have to say about that, about racism? How do you understand racism, and how is this happening over and over again to the Black man?
God, that's a big loaded question. I have 5 sons, so I can identify with that little fear and things you have to tell them, like put your hands in your pocket when they were little, when you're in a store, because you don't want people following them around. There are little things that has happened, but we have grown, and what we need, what I think what we need right now is to just right now, given everything that has happened, we need to empower everybody who is left behind. Go back and see what can I do for you and help lift those people up. Those of us who are doing better to take on people, ask for, whether federal or state, for things to be put in communities that are problematic so that they have better schools, better education. Look at people who are coming out of prison so that we are reforming them properly so that they're not repeating the same cycle. If that, that's part of it. And the other part of it, because the racism can affect you regardless, because it's like being stopped 40 times on the parkway, on the turnpike, because you drive a very fancy car, which happened to my cousin, And I said, well, what do you do about it? He said, if they did it one more time, I was going to file a report. But because when they stopped him and they saw that his license said medical doctor, he was left alone. So it's those kinds of, I think it's a stereotype of what people think we are. And I think what I think we need is education and a conversation. And but I also think that's gonna tamper this thing down is us being educated, being in a better place. And I think and I've said this before, we need to be the ones to beat that into our own people and be there for them and get a buffer of. And I think what's horrible about Floyd's life is losing his life is, I think people get it. And I think this, as horrible as it is, it will be an opportunity for everybody to work together to fix this, because you can. And I'm not going, oh, it's never gonna. No, it can change, and change peacefully. But it's gonna change through education and a number of things as to how we view ourselves and what is going on. And all of us need help, because not just African Americans. There are people struggling. What about the people in Virginia, that lives up in the mountains there that are forgotten? So we all need help, but we need to be each one teach one. We need to be less, looking at color, but bring in, and be fair, so that we're fair to everyone, so that it doesn't matter, because that's what I think is gonna resolve some of this, and also the economic side of it, in educating us and pushing each other up, showing more African American people how to buy a home, and even how to maintain it and financially balance yourself. There's so much that we can do. There's a basketball player, LeBron, I think, that took on a school and he's educating these children. And not only is he doing that, I think if the parents didn't have a GED, he's paying for them to get it. That is bringing people up from wherever they are. And I think when you're more educated, you're going to make wiser decisions.
So, Commissioner,
yeah,
I'm not interrupting you. I'm sorry. I'm just going to have to redirect this question. Now, I'm getting some questions for you right here.
Uh-oh.
Now, you are bringing solutions. Are you trying to say that the Black community are wrong for protesting?
No,
and
absolutely not.
I mean, is it the way they are being treated and the way the Black men are being killed, is it justified?
No, absolutely not.
So what do you understand? Do you see any racism in this in any way?
I believe in the protesting and fighting for your rights and asking for things from the people who have power for better treatment for you. I believe that. I of course don't believe that, we are being that anybody deserves anything like that because you're certainly not educated. What I would like to see us get out of is that if we are much better off than we are as a race of people, we are going to do better. And I think to address what has happened, and has had, and I experience it, my kids, we're all experience it, that we don't throw, I don't let somebody else's, toward mine, forget, let me, forget who I am, because I know who I am, but maybe we need to open a broader thing and teach each one. That's why I say each one teach one, to help, to help with this, because sometimes it's fair, sometimes people are afraid, or it's just what you say around your kids. It's there's a whole bunch of things why people do cruel, things. And I think, the police department may need more training, more understanding as to what we are, what we're dealing with, how they view us.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And thank you, because of our time, we're going to stay with time. We thank you for that contribution. We're going to go straight to you, Professor Akil. You are a professor, and you have actually dealt a lot with the community, the Black community. You mentor a lot of young people, and you have seen through the success, you've seen a lot of young people through graduation. And I'm sure that you are studying as an African-American, you represent the young African-American community. You represent the Black Lives Matter. You actually are for this protest, and you want this justice for not just for George, but for every African-American that was killed out there by a bad cop. Because I wouldn't say this was from the police, but it was just a bad cop. One bad cop has caused all this whole thing to erupt, you know, for this revolution to start taking place. Now tell us, what do you understand? You know, what is your concept of revolution? When you hear the word revolution, what does it mean to you, sir?
Uh-oh, no volume. Uh-oh.
Thank you for doing this show. And I also want to thank all the other guests who are here. One thing I think that's important, first of all, is that we think about revolution. Revolution is about dramatic change, right? So that we have to have dramatic change. And as a professor of sociology and African studies, and as you said, someone who works in the community, we have to look at what are the examples of that type of change. You know, Malcolm X says that there was really no revolution. There's no bloodless revolution. If you look at all the revolutions around the world, but the thing that he wanted us to really think about was that we have to change our mind. And if you add what he was saying to what Martin Luther King Jr. was saying, Martin Luther King Jr. said we need a revolution of thought. And I think that's where we have to start, really, is that we need to think about that our revolution has to be where we think, how we think about the world. We have to address racism and all the other things going on so that we are talking about it in a way that looks at that there are problems, but that we have to come together as a society to address those things. We have to come together collectively and holistically to address those things. So whether we are business people, whether we're educators, whether we are politicians, all of those angles are the ways in which we have to address these things. And I think we have to have specific legislation that addresses these things, that builds on top of the legislation that's already there, both on the municipal, the county, the state, and the federal level. And so when we look at it that way, we begin to see that's why we have all these large protests, right? That there's so many people involved because they see that the inequities have gotten to a point that we have to push beyond this barrier. This barrier is no longer tolerable, right? That I was in Los Angeles in 1992 during the Rodney King uprising, and so that I've lived through this and right in the middle of it, and so that to see this at this point in time to me says that we're repeating something, right? This happened in the 60s in all across the country. In the United States, after Martin Luther King Jr. assassination, there was over 125 uprisings in municipalities, but there was never been this level of protest in all the municipalities all throughout all of these municipalities in each of the states. It's not just the large states where we have protests and rally this time. It's vast and global, right? In Asia, Europe, Brazil, so many places in South America that folks are coming to the idea that we have to change the way we think and the way we do. And so for me, this is one of the reasons why I'm in the political process. That's why I'm running for office. That we got to think differently about what we do so that we can push the envelope on this. And we have to continue to educate the youth. We have to, as the Lieutenant Governor said, we've got to be out there in the streets. We've got to walk the walk. And I think she made a brilliant point to talk about how we have to be out. It's not good enough to sit in our offices. Those of us with lots of degrees, those of us with money, those of us with access and privilege. No, the majority of the people don't have those kinds of things. So therefore, how do we tap into the majority? The only way we do that is that we actually go and where they are and we communicate with them. We go in and find out what are the things that they specifically need, the things that they're lacking, and we address those things on a political, social, and legislative level. And that's how we begin to do these things that really transform the society in which we live. And we have to look at it systemically. And I'm going to end with this, and that is that I think that we have to look at it that when we look at whether it's policing or education or the textbooks that we use, that it's not just about the one book or one person. We have to look at what are the systems that are in place and how do we challenge those systems to bring about new systems. Revolution in the end is about the development of new systems that are drastically different from the systems that we have currently. And if we approach it that way and we begin to work hard that way, walking the walk. I love that what the Lieutenant Governor said, walking the walk. As we walk that walk, we have to then get out and do the things that are going to bring about that change.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that excellent contribution. I really appreciate that. That makes a lot of sense. You said that educating and changing the mindset is all about mental concept, all about our minds, how we think, how we reason, how we perceive this whole protest. It's very important that, we all out there, all the Black community, the white community, Hispanic, everyone, all over the globe protesting for justice and equality between all the races. It's not just about George Floyd anymore, but it's all about equality globally. That's what I see. So it's important that we understand that it's a mentality. It shouldn't just end. The revolution, it's not just about protesting, but it's about walking the walk on the streets and also helping. And Commissioner Lauren Badley mentioned that each one help one. Yes, each one help one, working together and ensuring that the mindset and mentality of our people are being transformed and letting them know that protesting is awesome, but stick to the vision and the whole goal and aim of protesting, which is to achieve a revolution. Now, that brings me to the violence aspect. And this question will be for the great activist, Julius Garvey. Mr. Julius Garvey, Dr. Julius Garvey, I would like to address you as a doctor because you're a doctor. Dr. Julius Garvey, I would like you to tell us, during the time of your father, Marcus Garvey, we witnessed a lot of protests in those times, but, how do you understand violence? Because this protest, it's not, a lot of the people are not protesting peacefully. I've taken my time to study and I came to the conclusion that a lot of ignorant folks are infiltrating this peaceful protest, and they are actually vandalizing people's stores and looting. And that is violence right there. That is very unacceptable. We are in a pandemic and these businesses were shut down for weeks, and they were supposed to open up just this Monday and their stores were looted. And I know that right here at Dover Mall behind my house, they looted Forever 21. Yes, it's right all over the media. It was looted, yes. And it's unfortunate that store is shut down. It's painful. And I took my time to make some calls, and I found out that it was not really the main protesters. It was just some ignorant folks that decided to, infiltrate this protest. Tell us, Dr. Garvey, please tell us, is it possible to have a revolution? Is it possible to achieve a successful, peaceful revolution without violence? Is it possible, sir?
Oh, definitely, it's possible. And somebody mentioned previously that, really it has to be a revolution of the mind. I think, we have to take everything in context. What has happened on the streets is a response to a public lynching. Now, this is something that has gone on for more than 400 years. I think, as Al Sharpton said, 401 years. And it's been vicious and it's been repeated over and over and over again. The thing about this is that it was in full view, and everybody saw the full 8 minutes or 9 minutes of somebody saying, I can't breathe, until their life was, it was a public execution, a public lynching, which has happened in the United States for a very long time. When my father came to this country in 1916, they were lynching African Americans. And don't forget, when you talk about violence, there's been so much violence perpetrated against Black communities. You know, whenever Blacks have pulled themselves together and developed strong communities, they've been burnt down, such as
Wow.
Tulsa 1919 and Rosewood. So the emphasis here is not on violence. The emphasis here is on a system that has been in place for 400 years that has disadvantaged, has oppressed, and has terrorized Black people. And it's a system of white supremacy. And its expression is police brutality. Police brutality is not isolated. It's a cultural expression. The police have been weaponized. That's a political decision. So what we have is a corrupt system, and we have a system that has been built on white privilege, which is just a simple way of saying white supremacy. Because if you know, about 8 out of 10 of the first presidents of the United States had slaves and made very, very negative remarks about, African people in America, including Abraham Lincoln. So racism and white supremacy has been endemic in American culture, and it's been systematized. And this is what the protests are about. You had protests back in 1919. You had protests back in the 60s. You had protests in the 90s. And now we're at a point where people are saying enough is enough. And we really need a systemic change, systematic change. The system itself has to be changed. Now, Martin Luther King tried to change the system in the 60s, and that's why he was assassinated. Martin Luther King said that the system that existed was a warlike system that was wasting the resources of the American government by killing brown people overseas. Muhammad Ali said the same thing, and that's why he did not want to go into the armed forces and go overseas. And those resources should be used to transform.
I lost volume. Oh no. Can everybody hear?
No, he pressed his microphone. He needs
Okay.
to press his
Oh, okay.
Okay, Dr. Julius, we can't hear you no more. Are you able to check your, I think you have to unmute yourself
Can
again.
you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now. Go
Mhm.
ahead, sir.
All right, I'm not sure what part you couldn't hear, but
You talked about Dr. Martin Luther King, the last one you were talking
right. When he was assassinated, he was leading a poor people's march, okay, because he was focusing on the economic disadvantages of African people in the United States of America. You see, and he was saying that the capitalist system and the way in which it was operating, he wasn't against capitalism, he was saying the way in which the capitalist system was being operated disadvantaged poor people. And we see it in the disparity now in terms of wealth between the upper echelons of white America and the Black and white poor people in the United States of America. The disparity has gotten worse. And we can see that in terms of the results of the pandemic itself. The people who have died are the people who have really had pre-existing comorbidities. And these are, to a large extent, African Americans and elderly poor white people. And basically, African Americans make 10 to 15% of the population with 40% of the mortality. So what we're talking about here is a whole culture and a whole system that has embraced racism and so far has refused to face the consequences of racism. And this now is a watershed moment. And I do not believe that people are going to give up without transformative change in the systems of government and the way in which African Americans are dealt with. There has to be some degree of retribution. I don't know if you know about HR 40 to study the reimbursement that needs to be made in terms of basically 250 years of free labor to build America, and there's been no compensation. There's no real reconstruction. Well, now has to be the time for reconstruction of America around the equality of all Americans. So the time is now.
Wow, wow. That was loaded. Whoa, thank you so much, Dr. Garvey. You just wow, you're truly an activist. You're truly a great leader, and thank you for sharing that. We just needed to hear that. There's not been a greater time than now that we all have to come together and actually sit at that table that you talked about for that reconstruction, and we need that right now. And we're going to go to Senator Stephanie Hansen. It's interesting to learn that this protest has gone global. It's not just about America anymore. I heard it was in Paris. It was all over. Actually, it was in Nigeria, in Africa. It was in Ghana. All over the world, everybody is protesting about the way African Americans are being treated and how George Floyd was being lynched right in broad daylight in the presence of young people. And that leaves a huge mental damage to those people that witnessed him being killed that way. I watched that video. I'm sure most of you saw that video. I couldn't even let my kids see it because my son was asking so many questions. I wouldn't let him see that video because it wouldn't get off his mind. I didn't want him to see that. And I know that this hurts everybody. So Senator Stephanie Hansen, can you tell us, you are a leader of a very big dynamic group in Delaware, and you founded this group and you have passion for, bringing people together. And I'm actually a part of the members of this group. It is the Multicultural Coalition. Now, this organization, you've hosted a lot of meetings, tons of meetings, and you've hosted a lot of big, great events of diversity. Can you tell us, you as the multicultural leader, as a multicultural senator, championing diversity, how can you talk to us about this? How can we all get together and remember the word diversity, and how does this help? Does it fall, or does it just calm the situation down?
Thank you for asking me to be on here. I think probably one of the most poignant things that I've seen over the last few days has been recently, where we saw the daughter of George Floyd on the shoulders of a family friend who's a former NBA basketball star. And what she was saying was, "My daddy changed the world."
Oh, wow.
She's right. She's right. And to hear that come from the mouth of a 6-year-old, it's so, talking about her deceased father was just amazing. I want to take just a second to kind of highlight Sergeant Saunders and the work that the Middletown Police Department have done and how they handle things. Them and the Seaford Police Department and how they have handled things. Because in both instances, we now see a police department recognizing that there is a large segment of their community that has a problem, and they want to be part of that solution. And so what did the Middletown Police Department do when the protest was being organized? They stepped in to help. They stepped in to help. They helped set up where it was going to be. They helped direct people and the protesters so that they would be safe from the traffic. They helped direct traffic, and it went off well. Same thing that happened in Seaford. That's what happens when you have law enforcement that gets it. But there's a lot of law enforcement that doesn't get it. Take a look at what's happened in Washington, D.C. Take a look at what's happened in Philadelphia. Those are good examples of law enforcement that doesn't get it. They don't get it on many levels. First of all, they don't get it even at the protest level. They don't see that people are hurting, and they want law enforcement to understand that and be a part of the solution. So what do? I can tell you what they do. I have a daughter that lives in Philadelphia that was part of the protests in Philadelphia. Part of the peaceful portions of the protest in Philadelphia, where there was no looting, no rioting. They were walking on the street, not in curfew, a police car drives by and tear gas them.
Wow.
What country is this? This is not our country.
Wow.
That is not acceptable. That is not acceptable. This is not a problem of a few bad apples. This isn't, oh, that was just a rogue cop. Maybe we were hearing that, the first time, maybe the second time. How many instances do you need time after time where people are dying to get off of this? This is a rogue cop. This is just a few bad apples. It's not. It's a systemic problem. It's a systemic problem that's an overly aggressive law enforcement response to a situation that has its roots in systemic bias and racism. That's what it is. So what we need to do is we have to put in place a system of checks and balances that does a number of things. Number one, first, it recognizes that we have a system of systemic bias and racism. You have to recognize the problem first. Do you recognize it? Do you see the people on the street? Do you know how hard it is to get people to come out to be a part of an event? I do. I've organized community events for 30 years. It is hard to get people to come out at a community event. So just think about the level of unrest and injustice that people feel to get them out all over the world, night after night after night. There's a lot there. There's a lot that people are really digging into. So we have to have a checks and balances. Number one, recognizes that the system, we have a systemic bias and racism within our system, and it exists. Number two, we need to set standards of behavior. What is appropriate? What is an appropriate response to this event that's just happened? To this in a personal interaction with this particular person that we think may have committed a crime or may not. How do we deal with protesters? Let's go. How are we going to deal with protesters? For goodness sake, do you gas? I think today is actually an anniversary of Tiananmen Square. I remember seeing something in the newspaper about that. Just saying.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
Just
you're right.
look what happened there, and look what I'm talking about here, where we're talking about gassing and in some cases beating protesters who were exercising their constitutional right to protest and to assemble, which is what they've been doing. And then thirdly, we need to hold individuals and the system accountable for, number one, the change that we want to see, and number two, the bad acts when they happen. Now, how do we get, that's what we need. How do we get there? Well, maybe that's where things like the Multicultural Coalition comes in, because we need to have these conversations. I think it's really helpful, not just with the Multicultural Coalition, but with each of your organizations that you're a part of. If you take a look at the organization that you're a part of, there are people within those organizations that come from different backgrounds, that come from a minority background, particularly African-American background. Ask them, make it a part of your company's introspection to hear from them. Listen to your VP of marketing. My husband's company is actually doing this right now. So I know it can be done. I know it can be done very effectively. So he works for a large chemical supply company. And so what they're doing is they are hearing from African-American members in their organization about their experiences. And when you hear those personal experiences coming from people in your organization that you talk to every day or that you look up to, it suddenly humanizes it. It's not, oh, it's those people or it's that issue over there. It becomes, oh, I didn't know that John went through that. I can't believe that happened. Did that really happen? Because some of the stories are shocking and we need to hear that. Also, I think beyond just hearing the stories, I really think that we need to put together something like a citizen advisory board, citizens review board, something like this for law enforcement. so that we can take continuous look into how are things going? How was this handled? Do we think it was appropriate? What were the circumstances? Like, let's bring the community in on this so that we have more of a role to play in how law enforcement is administered, because in many places, it's not administered all that well. And there are problems.
Wow. Wow. That was super loaded. That was super loaded. Wow. Thank you so much, Senator Stephanie Hansen. That was super packed, and we're grateful. Look, I don't know what to tell you, but I just feel like we have successfully achieved what we're here. We have finally defined what violence is and what revolution is. And the truth remains that we can actually achieve, what we're looking for. We're looking for peace. We can actually achieve this revolution without violence. And you're listening to the Jemima Show. You're watching the Jemima Show. And on here, we have special guests of honor. And I would like you to give our guests a thumbs up. If you're just tuning in, go ahead and share this video. Go ahead and share this broadcast. Share it to your community. Go ahead and invite them to watch. And if you have a question, type your question in the comment section. They're right here for you. They're very busy, but just like they've been telling us, each one help one. And this is their own street endeavor. They left a busy schedule to be here to share with you, to let you know this is how they're feeling. Because sometimes we're quick to judge our leaders. We're quick to say the government is not doing anything. But aren't you shocked to hear what they're saying? I know someone said to me yesterday, enough of talking, let's get to work. We have to go out there and protest. Someone said that in a group where I wasn't. And I said to them, look, it's not about protesting. It's about sitting at the table and having these conversations. It starts with conversations like this, holding, like Senator Hansen said, holding each other accountable, setting up this committee about this whole issue going on. It's all about recognizing and accepting that, yes, we have a problem. And that's what this show is about. That's what today is about. And that's what our senator, our lieutenant governor, our activist Julius, and also Professor Akil, as well as Master Sergeant Scott and Commissioner Lorraine Badley, they have shared with us. It starts with talking these things through and holding each other accountable. I'm so glad that everyone is protesting, but we have to take violence out of this protest. We can have peaceful protests and reach an agreement of what to do, just without looting stores and vandalizing people's properties, okay?
Yeah.
That does not help our economy. We're rounding up in a few minutes. I'd like my guests to get their thoughts together. We're gonna go round again to take questions. We are gonna go round to give our final word of wisdom. While the guests are getting their thoughts together, I'd like you to go ahead, hit the share button, go ahead and give a thumbs up to our guests to appreciate them if you think they're speaking well, they're representing you, as well as leave a question in the comment section for them. Now, I'm going to go ahead as well, and there's a situation, there's a book right here that I'm holding. It's called The Pride of an African Immigrant. So this book was sent to me all the way from abroad, all the way from outside the country. It was mailed to me when I had posted, they reached out to the Jemima Show. The author, his name is Masoki Masoki. He reached out and he mailed me 4 copies of this book. And he said that he wants to give all our guests a present today. And so he's mailing everybody a copy of this book. All our guests is mailing you a copy of this book. Now, what is this book about? I read through this book. It is The Pride of an African Migrant. Now, it's in remembrance of Jimmy Mubanga, a martyr of globalization, murdered by the UK border regime on a British Airways flight to Angola. So it talks about an immigrant that was murdered in cold blood by a bad cop as well. The book also is the same story with George Floyd, only that the guy was innocent and he did not do anything, and there was never justice gotten for him. So this book was written in memory of him as well, retreating the story, as well as, you know, letting people know that yes, these things happen for real, but there's a solution. This book has a lot of solutions for the Black community. I'd like you to go ahead and go on YouTube, on Amazon, and order your copy. I'm gonna have it on the Jemima Show website as well. It's on Amazon. It's called The Pride of an African Immigrant. So we're gonna go round. It's a powerful book, and I'm so glad. I want to shout out to the author, Masoki. Thank you so much for giving this as a present to our guests. All our guests has been, you know, he has mailed a copy, and I'll be sending that to your addresses. You receive a copy as a gift from this author, and appreciating you guys for speaking up. He said to me that these people are actually the real MVPs right now. They're coming out and they're taking responsibility, and they're willing to talk to the people. So I just want my guests to know that. So go ahead and share this broadcast. So let's go back to our guests and take them one at a time. And we'll start with you, Master Sergeant Scott. You have told us in the perspective of the police. Now, what will be your conclusion? Like, what will be your message on behalf of the NAACP as well as the Delaware Police Force? What will be your word to the Black community or to the entire Delaware, to all the world, to the entire world, from the police force? What will be your last word to people? What would you have to say to us at this time to bring about revolution?
Well, Jemima, you're talking about two different hats somewhere. So I'm going to try to bring them together. Somebody said it earlier, and I'm going to give confirmation because, like I said, I've been doing this job 30 years. There is a cultural problem within the police force, you know, so we have to, and somebody said it earlier, I think it was Lieutenant Governor, and I said this to my staff here, who's mostly Caucasian. African Americans, people of color, are looking for acknowledgement, okay, that this is real, that it is happening. It's not an isolated incident. It is systemic. It is ingrained in the country that we walk in every day. That is it. So we have to have acknowledgement. And just like we saw in Minneapolis, where the more tragic thing in Minneapolis to me, Mr. Floyd's death was tragic, but to see officers just stand there and watch, that struck me more. So wow. It's just like racism. It's so many people that sit there and just watch. They know it's wrong, but they don't have the courage to say anything, you know? And we have to have a dialogue moving further in our schools with our young people, and we have to teach them and grow them the way that they want to be, that we want the nation to be. You know, being in the military as a veteran, being on the police force, it's a team. It's a team concept. And what we have to realize is that that team includes Caucasians, Asians, African Americans, Latinos, and it cannot work without one piece of that team. You know, I think Dr. Garvey said it earlier that African Americans played a major role in building this country. And what did they get for that? You know, this constant oppression. So the thing I think to move forward is that we have to have acknowledgement. We have to have people that don't look like African Americans, that have real empathy, you know, and be willing to get out there with us to make the change that is needed to make America great again, so to speak, to make it great, period, not again, but great for the first time. We have to come together to make it great.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that contribution. Because of our time, each of our guests, I'd like you to take 1 minute to give your last word to you know, the people protesting out there and to the entire world, regardless, revolution without violence. And we're going to go to the next person, Ms. Commissioner Lauren Badley. In 1 minute, can you tell us
1 minute.
How can we achieve revolution without violence? In 1 minute.
Well, how we could achieve this is coming together and our positive thoughts and feeling that we're not left behind, but we're working towards the same goal. which is for all of us. I'm not for leaving one behind, but coming in together. And I think that's going to happen. I also think we need positive words, and we need to have a think tank, and we need to have some place where we can go and meet and talk more, so that we could get into a better place. And good thoughts. I mean, Joe's dad, Joe Biden, VP Biden's dad, used to say things matter. You know, Jamaica's money says out of many one people. I would love America to be out of many one people. There are so many people here, but we're not a melting pot yet. We're in the pot, but we're not in the melting pot. So my minute is probably over, you know, but I love what I see that has touched my heart out of this horror is cops and regular people taking a knee when that and I'm bad with names, football player took it, and we you know what happened to him. His career almost got damaged. And when I see black and white officers, but I'm sorry, but it touched me more when I saw white officers and men and women kneeling, taking that knee. And there'll never be an issue where we're going to talk about taking a knee again. Or hopefully we won't have to take a knee, because the problem is going to be resolved. And I want to thank Jemima. Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you, Bethany. Thank you, Scott, Akil, and Dr. Garvey. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you
here.
so much for your contribution. We appreciate
I
that.
appreciate every one of you.
We are going to go ahead straight to Professor Akil. You spoke very well, and you represented the African American community, and you spoke with passion from your heart. How, you know, I asked you this question before, but in your last, 1 minute right here on this show, can you tell the world, and by the way, before you speak, I'd like everyone to know that Professor Akil is actually running for office. He is running November the 3rd, 2020. He is running for Congress, and he's running for Congress. So I'd like you to know that's for the 10th Congressional District of New Jersey. So you can read more about him. Go ahead, go to Google, and I will be posting the profile of everyone speaking here today. If you want to learn more about all our guests today, I will have that up tomorrow. So by tomorrow morning, first thing in the morning, you would have all their profile and their email addresses to reach their offices. If you have anything you want to say from the community, or in a way that you want to team up with them, because I know they're willing to work with everyone out on the streets to achieve this revolution without violence. So I will have that up as soon as possible in the morning, first thing in the morning, everybody's profile, as well as their contact information to reach their office, should in case you hear or you want to report something, or you want to call their attention to something. So go ahead, Professor Akil. What will be your last word on this matter going on? How can we achieve this revolution as for equality in America without violence?
So I think that there's a couple of things real quick. One is that we need to go back and understand that if we look back in the 60s, what folks were fighting for is that they were fighting for humanity, their dignity to be recognized. The signs in the 60s said, "I am a man." Today, the signs say, "Black Lives Matter." Those are two sides of the same coin. What they're saying is that that our dignity, our humanity is not being respected and appreciated, and that we want to our as Brother Garvey said, our long-term contribution to this land to be respected. And so reparations, HR 40 is a prime example of how that can be done. Walking the walk is a prime example of how that can be done. And I think that, every time we come to these things, we have a war on poverty, we have a war on drugs, we have all these different things. But actually what we do need a war, but we need a different war. And we need to partner with our European Americans, white Americans, and the war is gonna be whites against racism, right? So then that begins, and I'm planning to start an organization like that, because in the end, that type of partnership for folks who are committed to fight against racism and white supremacy, as Brother Garvey said, will be the ones that are going to help us to end this. We have to work together, and we have to find the ways in which we work together to make that happen. And I'm committed to that. And anybody who knows me knows that that's what I'm committed to in terms of transforming this world. So reach out to me, and we'll work together, and we'll put together a program where we do that, but it's going to take all of us to be engaged. African Americans, Latinos, Native Americans, Asians, everybody has to work towards ending racism in America. That's our old COVID-19, right? We got to get rid of that disease.
Absolutely. So, that's really so true to hear that. He just said racism is a disease. Yes, I absolutely agree with you. And guess what? You cannot get the cure to a disease until you acknowledge that there is a disease. So racism is a disease globally. It's a disease in America, and it has to be cured. We need to get a vaccine for it. All right. So, Lieutenant Governor Bethany, you want to help us get a vaccine for this? Senator Hennessy, you represent us. Please take it to the House. We need a vaccine for this, okay? So thank you so much. That is powerful. If you're watching this, I need you to tweet that. Tweet that. That's a powerful line right there. Racism, and give credits to Professor IQ. That's powerful. So trust me, I'm going to be tweeting that. Racism is a disease in America, and we need a vaccine. And I think that Senator Hansen brought a vaccine, actually. She said, we need a committee of accountability. We need to set up a committee and hold these people accountable. That's a process of getting this vaccine. So I want to thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us. If you're just watching, you are watching the Jemima Show. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining us. And let's look at what our audience are saying. I see Brendan Badley. Middletown Police hosts coffee with a cup. The community needs to take advantage of these interactions. Oh, okay. Brendan Badley, thank you for joining. And this will be for you, Master Sergeant Scott. He is suggesting, I think the community are interacting with us now. The community, they're saying that the police officers or the police should try to set up a coffee table or, host a coffee, in a way to interact with the people. And he put it this way: the Middletown Police should host a coffee with cup day, maybe once a month, a coffee with a cup. That is powerful. Oh my God. That. You know what? If you're watching this, tweet that, and hashtag the Jemima Show. The police all over America should host a coffee day with the cup. That way the people can have a one-on-one with a cup and you can sensitize them, right? Dr. Garvey talked about sensitizing the mentality of our people, and that is with the cups, right? So you want to be able to reach out to these people and talk to them. That is super powerful. Thank you, Brendan, for that contribution. We want to acknowledge Omar Rashad and Divine and Chamugang Prosper. We want to acknowledge Dr. Eunice Gomez here, and she's saying great job, leaders. And back to the show. We want to thank you all for watching. You're watching the Jemima Show. Go ahead and share this. This is a revolution we're talking about without violence. And we have these great speakers on here. And all they're doing is talking to you and letting you know that, yes, they are with you. They agree that we should protest for equality. At the same time, violence is unacceptable and violence can actually take us backwards, okay? So we're going to go straight to Dr. Julius Garvey. What will be in 1 minute? Tell us, how can we achieve revolution without violence at a time like this where America is having so much unrest in a pandemic?
Well, we have to dismantle white supremacy in America and white privilege. Basically, white America needs to look at itself in the mirror and see what it has done over the last 400 years. Now, I'm very pleased to see that many white Americans have been participating in the protest. So I think that we have moved several steps forward, shall we say, since the 60s and probably also since the 90s. But the essence of it is that we need reparative justice. And this is the key. It's not about white people being nice to black people and black people hugging white people. It's about reparative justice. And this is real. And it has to be in the areas of education, which there's poor education in the black community. It has to be in the area of healthcare. It has to be in the areas of job training. It has to be in the areas of community banking, access to finance, and all the various needs within the black community. So I think the Black community and Black leadership needs to come together and outline the demands that we feel are necessary to transform America so that America can be truly great and without the inequality that we have seen over these last 400 years.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much. You are a great activist. You're a great leader. We appreciate, we're so happy that you are alive at this time to guide us, to guide us through this part. I took the time to read about all that you have achieved, accomplished at your age and your father. You are you are a legend of our time. And we appreciate you, great activist Julius Garvey. It's such a great honor to have you on here at this time, the Jemima Show and our community. We honor and we respect you for coming on today. So we're going to go ahead to the next person. Governor, we're going to have you, Lieutenant Governor, we're going to have you last so you can address, the people. So we're going to go straight to our one and only Senator Henson. I want you to tell us, Senator Henson, how can we achieve revolution without violence? You spoke passionately, and it's unbelievable. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be a racist here, all right? I don't have the disease, all right? But it's unbelievable that you're white. The way you spoke like a Black woman, I cannot believe it. Like you were talking, and I was like, oh my God, the passion in you, and I'm not shocked because I have seen it. I've seen your work. I've seen you work so hard to bring diversity into Delaware through your multicultural coalition. So please tell us at this time, how can we achieve revolution without violence in a time like this? You're muted, Senator. You have to unmute yourself.
Oh, sorry. I think that Gianna was right, and I think that we need to continue to prove her right. Her daddy did change the world. Everybody, no, a critical mass is listening now. I think we have the attention of a critical mass of people that we can now begin to really make change. So where it starts is with these discussions, not just at a high level, not just at the national level, for whatever those are going to be, but at our state level and particularly our local level, because local is where you live, right? So we need to make sure that we are connecting our local law enforcement with our local community and our local community leaders. And it's that consistent discussion, that consistent enlightening discussion. I've learned so much through this, and I'm sure there are so many people that are now having their eyes opened. And we're all looking around at, okay, now that we're beginning to see this, what do we do next? Because I'm really get from point A to point B, and what does that mean? Like, what are the concrete steps? So I think the first concrete step is we have to start formal discussion groups in many different levels. And then from that, we'll be able to see what the specific mechanisms are going to be by which we're going to set in place this accountability. The accountability for bad actors and the accountability for changing a system. That's what I think we need to do.
Wonderful. Thank you, Senator. Thank you, Senator Henson, for sharing that. That's really important, and we appreciate you for that. Because of our time, I know I didn't skip anybody. If I did, please raise your hand on your button so if you have something to say. So I want to talk to the governor right now. Lieutenant Governor, on a final note, I would like you to talk to us. This is Delaware. This is the world listening. As Lieutenant Governor, you represent leadership. You represent not just for Delaware, you represent other Council of Governors, as well as you represent Donald Trump right now. What do you have to say regarding revolution without violence? How can we achieve it as our leader? How can we achieve this?
Again, hopefully you can hear me. I apologize for the mix up in my phones. I've been on the street, walking the walk. As everyone has eloquently stated, we have to do this together. I'm a nurse. We all bleed red. and we all have to come together, and racism has to be tackled. I believe too, I like the thought that it is a categorical diagnostic disease, and I am here committed to make sure that we stand together. Vice President Joe Biden in this week talked about our call to duty, those of us in public service, no matter what our party, no matter what level, as our senator has stated, and as all of your panelists have indicated, we have a duty to care. And when we care, and we care about our local community, we come together and we make sure those inequities. This is not an equality issue. This isn't just law enforcement. Law enforcement has a lot of work to do. We have a lot of policy changes. We have structural changes, going back to what Dr. Garvey indicated about equity, health, housing, education, and at the end, a call to our heart, a call to care. So thank you for letting me participate. I apologize if I was a visual distraction today. I have been safe in my car sitting, but thank you for allowing me to be here. And I encourage everyone, let today be a commitment. Start that walk. Let's just not talk the talk, but let's join together in every way we can to address these issues. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Lieutenant Governor. We appreciate you for coming. We appreciate all our guests. And we want to let you know that this is the Jemima Show, and we appreciate you for tuning in. And we're super happy that you had the time to listen to this. We want you to go ahead and give all our guests a thumbs up as well, and show them appreciation that you were watching and that you really understood what they were saying, and that you're going to take to, grab from their wisdom. You want to go ahead and subscribe so you can be notified the next time, we're going to be live. We're going to be, the Jemima Show is in the forefront of this case, and we're going to be having a lot of speakers, our government officials, our leaders. They're going to be coming on to talk about this on a Monday, where the next show is going to be all about racism, and we're going to be having people from the African American community come to share their hearts about racism and what. So you want to go ahead and subscribe, hit the subscription button so you will be notified. So I want to thank all our guests for coming. I appreciate you all. This is amazing, and this is really what watching and listening to. And in a time like this, we need to come together. And from everything that we've all said, what I get from this is education, changing our mindset, taking it away off violence. Of course, we can achieve this revolution without violence, and creating opportunity for the African Americans, acknowledging that there's a disease. There's a disease, according to Professor Akito, and there's a disease called racism. There's a disease called racism in America. We need a vaccine for it, and the vaccine starts from a mental change. So we have to change our mindset and how we reason, so we can address this disease and cure it, possibly eliminate the traits of racism. And that is very possible. And that starts with you. That starts with the way you talk to your kids. That starts with the things you tell them about other races. Yes, no one was born a racist. No child was born a racist. But any child that turns out, any adult that became a racist today and is treating other people as less human, the person was actually brought up by a racist, or they picked it up from somewhere. And guess what? As an adult, you have the ability to unlearn this bad character. You have the ability to unlearn every bad manner, everything, every attitude you have right now towards your fellow human being. You still have the opportunity to unlearn it and relearn the good ones. We are all equal. We are one people, and no African American should be killed. No African American child should fear for their life. And today, we'll fight for justice, we'll fight for equality, and we say the entire Delaware, the entire United States, to the whole world, we are all one. We are one people, one nation, one love. And today, this is the end of the Jemima Show for today. Stay tuned for the next one. Thank you to all our guests, and thank you all for joining. I love you. Go ahead, subscribe. And guess what? Check out the Jemima Show website, our blog, www.thejemimashow.com, and go ahead and get all the information and contact of all our leaders that you saw in here. Thank you so much for joining, and thank you to the guests. God bless you, and have a blessed day.